Hello, bricks and mortar retail business owner tribe. Wow, that was a mouthful. Welcome to this week's training called the KPI Mastery Workshop. So thank you so much to everybody who RSVP'd for today's training. It's always useful for me to know how many people are coming along. And for those of you that RSVP'd, thank you very much. Before I get started, we've had a flurry of new retailers join the tribe. So if you're watching this, I'd love to hear what kind of retail store do you own. Can you pop that into the comment section below? I know of late we've had another pharmacy owner join us in the tribe. We've had a supermarket owner join us. So it's really exciting to see the word spread about the Retail Business Owners Tribe and the depth and breadth of retailers, bricks and mortar retailers, who are joining the crew. So today I am going to talk about KPIs. Hopefully you know what KPIs are. If you don't, key performance indicators. And KPIs, one of those crazy things when I was first taught it by my business coach, Casey. I keep talking about Casey every week because he was such a big influence on my business growing career when I was running my pharmacies, when I got my first pharmacy. But when Casey introduced me to KPIs, I had no idea what they were and why I needed them. And specifically, that's why I've developed this module, and it's something that I work with my clients on trying to develop within your store, mainly because it's part of my number one value, and KPIs are a direct correlation to freedom, because you can start to use KPIs to run your business from afar. But as always, I've overshot my intro, and let me get into it so I don't double up. Like always, there is a copy of the worksheet. So if you want a copy of the worksheet, just make sure you pop the word worksheet below. So the main problem that we have as bricks and mortar retailers as a result of not understanding KPIs is that we have a lack of direction within our store, right? So how many of you pop an emoji up, down into the comment section if you've got a lack of direction, if you've experienced a lack of direction? Because without KPIs, you lack a clear direction and objectives for your store, right? And basically, this can result in a sense of aimlessness, making it very challenging to prioritize tasks and initiatives within your store effectively. Also makes it hard to make decisions, right? Your decision making becomes really kind of off the fly and based on your head. Without data-driven insights, your decisions become really no point at all. They become an intuition, and you don't make decisions properly. And also the big challenge is, and the big problem is, that you then start to have difficulties in monitoring your performance, right? How many of us, we know we need to be monitoring the performance within our store, and we're just so busy that we never get around to it. But I'll talk about the causes in a moment. But monitoring our performance within the store is so important. And if you're not monitoring your performance in the store, the big problem then ends up being, it makes it very hard for you to identify areas of improvement. So key performance indicators, or KPIs, they serve as benchmarks for measuring performance and identifying areas of improvement within your store, which I'll definitely talk about later. Without KPIs, actually, you don't have any accountability within the organization, within your store, and you basically end up having subpar performance. All of that leads to missed growth opportunities for your store. And so overall, the big problem with KPIs is it can impede your business performance. And it's such a big part of running your store, which is why I covered it. And the cause of this, well, I guess I don't need to run through the causes. Why does this happen to us bricks and mortar retailers? Well, I don't know about you, but maybe you can put that in the comment section below. Why haven't you thought about KPIs for your store? Be really good to know. I can tell you, for me personally, I trained as a pharmacist when I got my first pharmacy. Obviously, I had no idea about KPIs. Basically, I had no awareness of it. And working with other clients, it's basically the same thing as well. Limited resources. Like how when Casey first told me about KPIs, how was I supposed to fit in KPIs in between of trying to serve my customers and grow the business? It just didn't make sense. And to be honest, I thought KPIs were for big businesses, and I thought KPIs were not really for retailers, but for more accountants and that kind of thing. I just had this perception about KPIs, and I also perceived them to be complex. Like KPIs, I thought of charts and all these crazy things, and I was like, "There's no way I'm going to do this." And I just thought, why do I need to do it? Because I've got the intuition, I've got everything up in my head, I have a point of sale system. There's no reason for me to track KPIs. And so there's some of the reasons why, as bricks and mortar retailers, we don't really think about KPIs that often. However, if we get it right, if we understand this piece of KPIs, we will get so much more clarity into our business. We will understand the metrics. I keep talking about levers, right? So with KPIs and key performance indicators, we get a clear indication of our store's performance, which allows us to make the right decisions. And making the right decisions, I often talk about pulling the right levers within your store. If you read my article this week, which I put on my blog, by the way, how many of you are reading my blog? I'd love to know, yes or no. Put in the comment section below, because I write a lot of articles about retailing, especially for you guys. So where was I? Decision making, improved performance. That's right. And if we get it right, we can allocate our resources better. So that means once we've taken the time to think about what KPIs are, what's going to affect the store, we can better allocate our resources, and therefore we'll have greater accountability. Now, when you're first starting out, KPI accountability is great if you're working with a coach, which I encourage you to do so. But not only that, the KPI accountability part also comes from later on down the track when you start to delegate, when you start to grow your business from afar. The best way to do that is by having key performance indicators, because you can end up pulling these levers. You can start to understand what the initiatives that you're carrying out in store and how they reflect into your business growth, because you're going to have some way of monitoring these, what we call key performance indicators. All this leads to greater financial stability, a much better competitive advantage. You will not believe how many retailers do not do this. How many of the large retailers also do not do this. Ultimately, this will give you so much competitive advantage in the marketplace. And what this does also is, as I was speaking before, it empowers your employees, because once your employees have clear KPIs, not only for themselves, but for the store. I'll talk about employee KPIs later on, but what I'm talking about today are store KPIs. They actually take that on board. They gamify the situation. I can show you, you'll be shown how to do that later on. And basically, this allows for business growth and expansion, because by continuously implementing the right KPIs and continuously monitoring them and using the feedback for your key performance indicators, you can optimize your operations, optimize your growth, expansion, your sales, your cash flow, your profitability. Ultimately, really the reason why I loved KPIs when I was running my pharmacies was I could spend time away from the business. And many of you know that I love to travel, still love to travel now, and I love to travel when I was owning my stores. And by keeping an eye on my KPIs, my KPI dashboard, which I'll talk about later on, you will get to run your store from afar, because you know what's happening within the store without being there. So it's really, really important. So that's what happens when we get it right. So what I'm going to run through now is what you need to do. So here are the steps that you need to take to implement this in your store. There is a worksheet. I will if you want a copy of that worksheet, just put worksheet below. I'm trying not to get distracted by the comments. I thank everyone for putting the comments. I see. Where's the blog accessible? alvinnarcycoaching.com. If you go to my blog, that's where my website is. You'll see all the articles that I've written on personally regarding everything to do with retail and running your store. So I digress. So let's go. What you need to do. Here's what you need to do. Like I mentioned, always an overview here. I go through this in depth with you when you become a client. And here's what you need to do to effectively master KPIs and key performance indicators within your store. The first thing is you need to think about them. It sounds very obvious. Why I say this is because every store has different metrics that are going to mean success for them. Of course, there are going to be some common metrics across all retail stores, but the first step is to figure out what's going to be suitable for your store and what's relevant for your store. So it's that same thing of just taking the time to figure out what's relevant. And I think if there's one thing that I can impart from you from today's KPI Mastery Workshop, apart from KPIs, is to actually take the time to work on your business. I'd love to know in the comment section below, how many of you actually take time away from your store to work on your business, to actually think about these things like KPIs? I'd love to know. Put that in the comment section below. How many of you do it? Just put a yes or a no. So you need to think about KPIs. Really, really important. Think about the causes within your store. So what are the things that are going to move the needle forward within your store? And these are the causes. These are the things that you need to think about. The other thing you need to do is, I mentioned earlier that some retailers have too many KPIs, and I think it's really important that we not have more than 6. So we can track a whole heap of metrics. Hopefully through your point of sale system, you can get a whole heap of other metrics. But like I said in point number 1, you need to think about what are the KPIs that are going to move the needle within your store, and keep them to 6. So important. Why 6? Well, because somebody's going to be tracking and measuring these KPIs. So that's one point that you need to do there. Keeping it to 6 really forces you to work on Pareto's principle. Pareto's principle. Do you know what Pareto's principle is? If you do, pop that in the comment section below, yes or no. It's that 80-20 rule, right? Because 80% of your sales, or 80% of the things you do, that'll come from 20% of the results. So 80%, I beg your pardon, 80% of your results come from 20% of the things that you do. So you don't need 100,000 KPIs. You just need, I think, 6 will work very, very well for most stores. So think about your top 6. Oops. And then we need to track it weekly. So we need some sort of system in place to track your KPIs. It's so easy to go overboard here. Many of us have our point of sale systems, and we can possibly get some sort of report from there and we can track it. Hopefully you can do that and configure it. And if you can do that within your point of sale system, happy days. Make sure that you look at it weekly, because only from looking at it and tracking it weekly will you be able to start to make some really big decisions about how to grow your business. If your point of sale system does not provide some sort of KPI dashboard, the best way that I recommend is to use a simple A4 paper. You don't need to buy a fancy KPI dashboard software. A simple A4 piece of paper, keep it in the back staff room, have it listed there, have it visible so everybody can see it, because it's really important for your team members to be able to see the KPIs that you're tracking in store. And it's important that you need to display it. So I like to put it, as I mentioned, I like to put it in the staff room. I recommend my retail business owners pop the KPI dashboard there. But you need to be able to display it. Now, why is that really, really important? Because what you want to do is you want to get the whole team involved in the growth of your store. And to do that, you need to have some sort of buy-in. And the best way that you can have some sort of buy-in that involves gamification is by sharing with them how the actual store is going. Now, I won't go into it in depth, but later on, if you do end up working with me, what we end up doing there is picking some KPIs. And one of the smart ways to do it is not only by looking at what needles are going to move the store, but actually bringing in, there's a great way that you can bring your team members into the whole conversation about picking KPIs that'll build buy-in. But that's a discussion for another time. So we need to display it, right? It needs to be visible. where people can see it, where you can see it as well. So really big point there. And there's no use in having KPIs if you're not able to make some meaningful decisions about what is happening in your store. So part of the whole deal of mastering key performance indicators in the store is to be able to look at your KPIs on a weekly basis and then make some really important decisions on what's going on or what you need to do to move the dials within your store, what you need to do to actually grow the business as a result of the KPIs, because you need to look at it every week. And that doing it weekly will allow you to make some, will give you some very, very clear insights within your store and what is happening under the hood in your store. So in summary, if you want to hit some home runs or run the fastest mile within your store, you need to understand, again, number 2 first, of course, you need to understand what are the causes, what's going to move the dial within your store that's going to allow you to have really great growth. As a result, you will choose the key performance indicators, and no more than 6 of them, please. You want to make sure that you track and measure them weekly. And then from the information that you get from them, you actually start to take action. There's no point in having a KPI dashboard which just looks pretty with a whole heap of graphs and numbers, and you're not actually doing anything with it. So there you go. So that's how you set up KPIs within your store. That was the KPI Mastery Workshop. Like I mentioned, if you want a copy of the worksheet, just pop the word worksheet below. And until next time, much love. We'll see you later.